Lisa Haverly here, Nature Superhero Network, where we really try to inspire and empower therapists to take their work outdoors in nature. And so I'm on this journey of sharing people's stories, because stories is how we make sense of things. And stories is how we can then inspire others to maybe make or bring nature into their own story as they service clients and persons and groups and populations in the work that they do. So today I would like to introduce you to Michelle. And she and I are both from this upper Midwest, where again, we are predicting to get up to maybe 10 inches of snow. I don't know if we're going to get that much, but it's coming down pretty heavily right now. And so we share, some of those similar weather patterns that you have to navigate when you are wanting to do therapy outdoors. But Michelle here has started a business that's doing quite well, and nature is a part of that. So welcome. Thank you for being here, Michelle. And I'd like you just to kind of say who you are, and then kind of what your story to connect to nature is, your connection to nature. And then what was the spark or the struggle that really tipped you into maybe wanting to be an entrepreneur, and why nature? Let's start there. All right.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, so I'm Michelle Pettit, occupational therapist. Myself and a partner, Lizzie Duffy, we started Roots and Wings Therapeutic Services just last year. And so my connection to nature, we don't solely do things in nature, but we're in people's natural environments. And my initial connection to nature is just that I grew up on a farm, grew up playing outside a lot, going to the beach, fishing, what have you. And then as I got older and became adult, my connection to nature just evolved in different ways through camping and hiking and cross-country skiing, just sitting in my backyard. And just all of these activities bring me so much joy and really give a lot of meaning to my life.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. So did you grow up in Minnesota too?
Yes, I did.
Yeah. Okay. So awesome. Oh, I have a message there. Sorry about that. Beep. All right. So Michelle, then tell me more about how you decided. So where did you come from? What setting to now you have Roots and Wings? So tell me that kind of journey that got you to saying, yep, I want to be my own boss. I want to do things my way. So tell me that journey.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so I've worked in a couple of different pediatric kind of outpatient clinic settings, which I really loved on many levels. I had great managers, great teams, overall in so many ways a great fit. But kind of what shifted, I guess that's a multi-layered kind of answer. But first off, I guess my initial struggle with just being in a clinic all day was I'd be longingly looking out the window being like, why am I not outside? How can I get outside more? Why can I not do my therapy out there? Why can't I bring my work out there? With knowing how many great benefits there are for, of course, not only myself, but for the people that we work with.
Right.
And then secondly, just feeling challenged, or I guess limited and the ability to carry over or generalize things learned in a clinic or done in a clinic to someone's natural environment, whether that's a nature-based setting or their home or some other community setting. In the clinic, there's so many fun swings and all this different equipment that you can use, but most people's homes don't have that.
Right. Oh, I love that, because I talk about all the time how, and these natural environments, and home is a big one, right? And we know that research really tells us that that is where the magic happens. That's where progress can be made, the most. But I do consider nature to be one of those natural settings, mostly because I think it's accessible in some way, wherever you are. Now, the amount of access can look different, but to me, the outdoors is where children should be playing. and hence kind of the natural space. And so I'm hearing you saying then for you, it was, I want to serve people in their natural environments. And so home is one of those and nature is another. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And in home too, there's, you can build up that accessibility to nature, like just going in the backyard is great.
Sure.
Playing on the sidewalk, in the driveway, the local park.
Right. Showing them how to access those environments for learning, playing, having fun, whatever you're working on. Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. So, do you recall kind of a moment where you were either at your previous job or when you are at home or wherever you were, where you said, okay, I have to make this change? Like, was it in collaboration with your partner? Was it some conversation you had at home when you were talking to a friend or another family member? Kind of tell me that moment where you made the decision.
Yeah. So,
Remember. Yeah.
with always kind of having that in the back of my mind, and then I've actually sustained a couple of concussions on the job working
Yeah.
in the clinic type setting. It's a really busy environment that's not always predictable. Stress levels are higher in the clinic. So yeah, I've had a couple of injuries, and which led me to be really sensitive to light and kind of just feeling overwhelmed in the clinic environment. So I think that really was like, can I make a change? What would the change look like? And then I just happened to connect with Lizzie around that same time and talk to her about it, and she's like, that sounds great. If you do something, I want in. And then we really started to talk about what are the missing needs in the community, how can we fulfill those needs, and how can we fulfill our own needs. So our kind of slogan is, we meet you where you're at. So that's physically, mentally, socially, emotionally, but we need to do that for ourselves too.
So true. So very true. And so then what I'm hearing you saying is there was a health reason that you really had to kind of more seriously look at how else can I utilize my skills? And then how did you, when you were looking at community need, how did you determine that community need? Did you do a needs assessment? Did you talk to people? Kind of tell me what that looked like as you tried to figure out what were the needs? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So once Lizzie and I started talking about kind of what we've just seen and witnessed, as OTs in this community, and people in the community,
Yeah.
seeing what's out there and what's missing, and a big piece of it was not having the OT services in the natural environment. Not there's not There wasn't a lot of services for people across the lifespan. So we serve adults too, especially adults with like sensory and emotional regulation and executive functioning type needs, and services that are neurodiversity affirming, which my partner Lizzie, she's autistic and has ADHD. So she's really well connected with that community, learning about
Okay.
neurodiversity affirming practices and what's out there and how we can support people.
Nice. I love it.
Yeah.
A really cool perspective to have then. So is she a therapist also?
Yeah,
No.
she's also an occupational therapist.
Very cool. Oh, what a gift to have that insight. That's awesome.
Yeah. And so then from
Mhm.
there, I guess we talked to people. We started to make a business plan, people with more business like minds than us, other people who have done
Very
this work like you. We consulted with you,
cool.
and another occupational therapist, and just really got the business plan together and looked at those strengths and weaknesses. And
Very cool. I love it. I love what you're doing. All right. So let's just talk then about who you serve and what that looks like on a daily basis, since you do cross the lifespan. And if you could highlight then any time that you have either brought nature into the scenario or that you have gone out into nature. So if you could highlight that, because I know that you are working in the home environment, but share kind of globally and then more specifically about how nature is brought into the picture.
yeah, absolutely. So we see people across the lifespan, as I said, and usually more like toddlers to however old is kind of more our jam versus babies, I guess. But we could. And it can really be anyone who needs support with their motor skills, strength or coordination, sensory processing, regulation, executive functioning. We see a lot of people that are autistic, ADHD, anxiety, learning learning disabilities or developmental disabilities, and bringing nature into the picture. With some of my teens, I've gone on walks or we've gone out swinging in their backyard, hiked on trails.
Have
And
you
that,
made, can I interrupt you? Have you made any observations on how it either looks different, feels different, outcome-wise different when you compare it to the clinic environment? And maybe you haven't, and that's okay, because I'm not against clinic-based therapy by any means. I think there's a place for that as well. But I'm just curious, as we try to bring credibility to nature-based work, if you've seen any differences, and maybe for yourself even.
oh
You know?
yeah, no, absolutely. So I agree. I think the clinic definitely has its place and it's great. But one thing that I have seen that I didn't expect to see was just like the reduced anxiety levels of the clients and the caregivers. Like people are much more open and able to learn and grow when they don't have that extra stressor with all of these other things going on in the environment.
Sure.
Um, so I think that's really been a great like side benefit that I didn't really think of. But
Yeah.
then as far as like things like working on like completing like a multi-step task in the home environment. Sometimes you would try to do that in the clinic, like you might make slime or do an obstacle course, which is great. But in the home, it's like, how do I complete a morning routine? And so you get to actually walk through that morning routine step by step,
Yeah.
observe it, see it, and be able to like adapt it physically with them and see what works and what doesn't. So those have definitely been huge things. And also having feasible and realistic expectations of what kind of sensory tools are in the environment, how
Sure.
much time do you have in your daily life to spend specifically targeting these things, or how do you work it into your natural life?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I just think that can be so powerful to be in the actual context where the meaning and the purpose and the function needs to happen. Right. So very cool. Very cool. Awesome. Anything else you want to say about your business? So the name of your business is Roots and Wings, and
Therapeutic services, yeah.
yeah, Roots and Wings Therapeutic Services. And tell me your kind of service area here in Minnesota.
Yes. So I'm in more like the Northwest Metro, and I'll serve like 30 miles outside of my home, like traveling to people's homes or communities. And
Yeah.
then Lizzie lives in the more Northeast Metro, and she serves 30 miles outside of her home, pretty much. But we have some telehealth clients that are way up north.
Awesome.
Um, yeah, and we've done a camp at Recupera Acres out in Watertown, and we'll be doing that again this summer.
Very cool. And so you accept some insurance and you have a wait list. So tell me about, just for the sake of those listening, the process of being able to carry insurance and bill insurance, and tell me just a little bit about that. If you had any kind of tips or advice for people as they take on the insurance world. I am strictly out of network right now anyway. Never say never, but because that can be a daunting, kind of thought of like, oh my gosh, I don't want to go there and do that. But you're doing it. It's successful for
Yeah.
you. So share with our listeners um, kind of that process and what has helped you kind of manage it.
Yeah, it definitely is a challenging process. So we do bill insurances, and then we also have some package pricing available, and we do consultations. But for insurance, we're in network with Medicaid, Medicare, and health partners. Um, And it was definitely a process to become in network with all of the above. To be Minnesota healthcare provider, so that's our MA status. I think it probably took a total of 5 months. Really, by the time you submit something, you wait to hear back. You have to make corrections.
Mm.
Uh, I would definitely, if someone is looking into doing it, I would definitely find someone else who's done it and ask those questions. My partner is really good at that kind of stuff, so she might be a resource from some people. For me, it's honestly a little over my head and not very enjoyable
Yeah.
for me.
And that's a good thing to be honest about, right? We can't be good at everything, and more often than not, we're just really therapists, right? Versus business-minded people, but we do have to learn the process. So
Yes.
you outsource for billing then, correct?
Yes. For a
Yeah.
long time, we were trying to do it on our own, and then just getting too many denials and needing to resubmit it was taking too much of our time when we would really wanted to, yes, focus on being the therapist. So we've since outsourced, and it's huge stress relief.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure. So it can be done. It's a process that you have to probably plan for. And then having somebody that's going to do that billing for you, at least maybe not right away, but move in that direction can really save some stress and time. Right. Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah.
great. Okay, so what resources, or if you had any other advice for listeners as they kind of make this transformation into thinking about whether or not to be an entrepreneur or how to make nature-based therapy work? Any thoughts there? Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think, thinking outside the box is great. And as OTs, I think we're naturally have strengths in that area. So it's not feasible for everyone to do a startup. Lizzie and I were very fortunate to have each other and both have very supportive families during this time. When you have to think about health insurance and things, we were both on our spouses. That's definitely a huge deal in getting started. And if it's not feasible, um, I, you can still advocate for those services, or bring nature into the clinic. You can plant some things, and you can talk to families about the benefits of nature and getting out, going to playgrounds, whatever it is.
Right. Right. Because I think if you're truly passionate about the nature component, then no matter the setting, you can figure out ways to support people in understanding that a nature connection is matters, but how much that nature environment can really afford development and really be another therapeutic tool in the toolbox for stress, for development, for so many different things. So very good. Awesome. Anything else you'd like to add there? Otherwise, I would love to hear a quote that inspires you. And then in the end, kind of what is your favorite nature space? If
Yeah.
you, yeah.
So, a quote that kind of inspires both myself and my partner that we go back to a lot is Dr. Ross Green, I think, says it best with kids do well if they can. And we add that adults do too. So, if someone's not doing well, like what's the underlying reason, and how can we analyze and problem solve these person factors, environment, and activity factors, to really support that person so they can do well and feel good about it?
Yeah, I love that quote too. I have so many favorite quotes, but yes, I do 100% agree. And if they aren't doing well, that's why we support them to try to figure out how can we get you to feel better about who you are and to do better in your life. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, I want to go down that rabbit hole because I could talk a whole much more about willful behavior versus, it being a response, but we'll save that for a different conversation. All right. And your favorite nature space, Michelle?
So many. I love to travel, but I'm gonna stick close to home for my answer. I love the North Shore. Like Duluth is amazing and beautiful, and I went to school there. But then even going past farther up north to Grand Marais, like I just love the rocks and Lake Superior. It's uh, uniquely beautiful.
Yeah, so come to Minnesota's North Shore because it is beautiful. The water is a little cold, but the rocks are warm, fresh,
Refreshing though.
very refreshing. There you go. The cold therapy treatment. You can get that at the North Shore. But it is beautiful country up there. 100% agree. So, all right. So, is there anything else that you would like to add in closing as we wrap this up and you get to hear you hear another story of a nature-based superhero here in Minnesota doing amazing work in natural spaces, and not just nature, but natural spaces of the home environment or community. So, anything else?
Well, thank you for being a trailblazer in this area. And ever since starting, it's been really fun to connect with other OTs trying to do similar things. And, it's a small network of people, but I think it's expanding. And so that's really exciting.
Yeah. And I think that's a big reason I'm doing this, because it is a small group of people, but the more we can share awareness, my hope is that more people will consider this in the future, and that it's a feasible and doable thing to do nature-based work. So, all right. Thank you so very much for sharing your story. And I'm sure we'll connect again in the future. And I'm excited for all that you're doing across the river and across the water here. All right. Thank you so much.